What's up, girly pops, and welcome to the 5th ever episode of the MotoGirlyPops podcast. I'm Daxa, and the stat scavenging cryptid on the other side of the screen is
the TVRoomRaccoon.
And we're here to bring you everything that you need to feel within the deepest depths of your heart about the Brazil round of the 2026 MotoGP season. Raccoon, how was your round 2?
I'm glad you said everything you need to feel things.
Right.
Because I do. There were a lot of feelings, largely mixed
today.
Like the weather.
The weather, yeah, that was a Fifi.
Mm. How about you? What were you feeling about the weekend?
I had a good time. Maybe arguably for like not all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, drama is always fun. It's always fun to be like, "Ooh, this happened and that happened," and then you like peel back the layers a little bit, and you're like, "I'm not sure that I want this particular kind of excitement every single time. I'm not sure that I want to fear for the life of our geriatric goat, Marc Marquez, every time he goes over a bump." But you know what? If that's what fate has in store for us, then so be it.
Can we say that as self-declared messy bitches who live for the drama, there was a lot of drama?
There sure was. There was definitely a lot of drama. What did you think of the Friday? We had a chaotic start right away with the rain or partial rain.
I have only one thing to say about Friday, and that is Toprak P3.
So true. In fact, this was such a significant development that I put him in my fantasy team. You want to ask me how that went?
How did that go?
Horribly. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I really thought that there would be rain on Sunday. And so it was like, I mean, if this is what he's doing in the rain, it might be worth it.
I had such a good time on fantasy unintentionally because I forgot to change my team, or like I remembered like as Quali was starting, so I got to watch the final 3 seconds on the countdown tick down and like not manage to save in time, and I was so angry with myself because it meant that I still had Bez and Diggia in my team.
Yeah, what a foolish mistake that was, wasn't it?
Then they qualified P1 and P2, and I was like, you know what, I will take that. Yeah, Toprak P3 was just so good. I mean, and like, you know, all the but new track, in the rain, it's the great equaliser for a reason. Are we gonna see similar things later in the year? Like, I certainly hope so. But just, it was so great just seeing.
Did you just say the rain was a great equalizer? This is not F1. Like, we had our usual rain suspects. We had like Zarco up there. We had Marquez up there. But like, are you going to say that Zarco is like a Marc Marquez level rider just because he puts up those performances every time it gets a bit slippy? Maybe for an S1 GP.
I think that rain is a great equalizer in MotoGP as well.
Really?
I'm not. Yeah.
Almost no one even practices in the rain.
I'm not saying, yeah, and like a lot of it comes down to natural feel. I'm not saying that how people do in the rain is like the be all end all of people's talent levels, and you do have people like Quartararo, Lorenzo in his days. Like, you have people who are clearly greats but just like not very good in the rain. But you can see, I do think it is noteworthy that when you have a bike that is as underpowered as the Yamaha is right now, and then you create conditions such that what matters is more feel and talent and less the actual power of the bike, that someone like Toprak jumps to the front, I think is noteworthy.
Unlike F1 or four-wheeled motorsports in general, feel and talent is definitely the factor, but the manner in which it presents itself is, I think, notably different, because the margin for error when it's raining is so much narrower. And you might think, oh, that means the riders with the better feel will perform better. But I think it's a different kind of feel where, like, have you seen that famous clip of Yurichi Kiyonari in the rain at Silverstone, I think? He's like dancing and it's like sliding everywhere.
Yeah.
The thing is that like in the dry, when your tires break traction, they break traction really progressively, especially like the soft tires or like certain tire manufacturers. I've heard that the Pirellis from Superbike are really good at this. And like they break traction progressively. And so I think it's a different skill to maintain a certain slip angle in order to generate maximum drive or braking force than it is to ride the knife edge of traction or no traction that you have to ride when you're in rainy conditions. Because it's like when the traction goes in the rain, it just goes. It's like a light switch and then you're off and you barely have any time to like react to that. Obviously these brilliant like alien freaks of nature are able to do that. But like, yeah, your room for error, your margin for error is tiny. And I think that that's a different skill as opposed to like staying a certain percentage over the limit. If that makes any sense.
Daksha, that sign can't stop me because I can't read.
Okay, cool.
All I'm seeing.
I mean, I'm happy for the Toprak glazing.
Toprak ahead of noted Rainmaster Jack Miller on the same bike. Toprak P3. I'm just going to take it.
The other notable thing that happened on Friday, actually, there was a notable thing that happened on Thursday, which is that we saw photos of the track completely flooded all over social media.
Yes.
And then there was like a huge panic for 6 hours, even though apparently 30 minutes later it had already been like drained.
Well, yes. So you had the panic and then I'm not going to name names, but I saw a number of people then making fun of those people who had panicked. I saw a number of people being like, "Oh, it's always a naysayer, like doomsday prophets, whatever. Like, of course it's going to be fine. Look at how good the drainage is." And was it fine? It was not fine. We didn't know it at the time, but it was not in fact fine.
No, and you can name one name because I'm pretty sure I made fun of the doomsday people.
Were you one of the people making fun of Simon Patterson?
I didn't make fun of Simon Patterson, but I do remember being like, oh, I mean, if it looks dry in 30 minutes, how bad could it be?
Because I definitely did see a number of people being like, oh, Patterson always bitching about like, always the, crying wolf in every direction. And like, no, it was that amount of rain was in fact not possible for the circuit to handle.
You know what? If anyone does have the right to bitch about the weather, it's probably the only English-speaking journalist who paid the £3,000 flight ticket to actually go over to Brazil and watch that race live.
That is a hot take and one I will support.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Journalists, as far as I can tell, are poor, but he did do the thing. He went all the way over there.
But there was, like you said, it did rain fairly quickly. And then on Friday, of course, in practice, we had the threat of rain, which is why we got those like crazy opening, like 15 minutes where everyone was just like pushing like crazy to get a lap in. And one of the, I would say that the most notable thing there was Toprak P3. I genuinely think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I think the second most notable thing was Bezzecchi P nothing, P20.
Yeah, literally P20.
Yeah. That just like, things did not look good.
No, and this makes me think that maybe we should tackle our pre-race predictions, which we posted on Instagram and our YouTube community. I don't know if anyone saw that, but Bezzecchi's stinker of a performance was actually the reason that I thought I was doing something so brave by predicting that he would finish in the top 10. But turns out that was not that much of a long shot after all.
It was also not that brave. Like last year, he kept qualifying. First half of last year, he was always qualifying like P15 and then ending up P6, I feel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, the rest of my predictions were a little brave.
You predicted Toprak to finish in the top 5. Answer for your child.
Okay.
Explain yourself.
That prediction was directly related to my very first prediction, which is that it would rain on Sunday. He qualified third in the rain I thought if it was going to rain on Sunday, he's going to be in the top 5. Based on the same metric. Same metric. Listen, I was going for a long shot. I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be like quirky and interesting. And this is just the price that you pay when you try to be quirky.
It's so hard out here.
It can't always pay off, all right? I've got nothing to say for my child.
You have nothing to say for your child?
No.
I, on the other hand.
Oh, yeah. Your child is, yeah. Well, one of your children.
He's not doing well. You wanna read my relevant prediction?
Sure. Pecco is so back, parentheses, final, parentheses, actually final. Use this one, parentheses, 1, parentheses, 2.pdf. How did that go for you?
You know, he crashed out of P11.
He sure did. He sure did.
I feel like at this point, I just gotta keep predicting like Pecco is so back every weekend until it finally hits.
Yeah. Broken clock twice a day, etc., etc.
The way it looks right now, it's not gonna hit until he moves to Aprilia next year and gets the Massimo Rivolo treatment.
Okay, we'll get to that. There's plenty of time for that. Let's move on to Saturday. We had 2 amazing performances from Q1.
The 2 top finishes in Q1 were Diggia and Bez, and they then qualified P1 and P2 in Q2. I feel like, can we just flat out say that this was one of those qualies where being in Q1 was a huge advantage?
And do you think that's because of like the developing track conditions?
Yes. I think like considering the rain on Friday, considering the circuit is new to everyone, I think having those 15 minutes extra also because everyone, if I remember correctly, everyone was using FP2, which of course is right before quali. Everyone was using that for race setup because there had been basically no dry running. So if everyone's using that for race setup and then you're in Q1, you're the only one of the front runners who is getting to actually throw on a soft tire and really go for it.
Keep in mind also that this is the time that MarcMarc has said that it felt like it was raining under the track. Saturday was completely dry, and there were so many crashes at turn 4. I think I posted something on Twitter saying that the lines of people exiting the track on the side of their fairings at turn 4 looked like a urinal at the club at 3 a.m. Yeah,
Poetry.
I mean, thank you. I just I mean, there was clearly something going on there with the drainage, a dam patch under that turn or something. Marquez said that thing about it feeling so slippery, like it was raining from under the track, which is a really freaky, like sci-fi-esque sort of way to put it. And there was also the development of the deteriorating surface. So I think Saturday's when we started to see some of turn 11, I believe, turn 11 and 12 just like come apart.
It was actually, I'm missing an English word.
Say it in Norwegian.
When I'm missing it in Norwegian too. When what's the word? When you it was foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, yes.
I also think like even in Q2, was it 5 out of the 12 in Q2 crashed, including the pole sitter?
Yeah, it really was.
They were falling like flies left and right.
And like 4 of them were in turn 4. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah. How impressed should we be by Diggia? We will of course get on to the rest of his weekend, but just like quali alone, how impressed were you?
I was reasonably impressed. I always struggle with Diggia. I think we suffer from a similar thing of last year where like, where's the barometer? If Marc is all the way up there and Pecco is all the way down there, who are we measuring Diggia against? And Diggia got a lot of praise the whole weekend from both the TNT Sports commentary team and the MotoGP commentary team. Basically saying that like, oh, he can really say that he like fought with Marc Marquez and came out on top. Etc. Oh, like in the sprint he fought with Marc Marquez and he really stuck it to him, and then in the race he came out on top. And I'm just like, this Marquez, Like he came on top against this version of Marc Marquez.
It's basically elder abuse at this point.
Right. Like, I want to give him his flowers. He deserves some flowers. I think it was a fantastic performance. He didn't crash out of P11 like a certain someone we know. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
But
I don't know her.
I think to say that like, oh, he can like really like take this one home with him and like be proud of the fact that he beat Marc Marquez on equal machinery in the dry. It's like, okay, let's take it down a notch. Just one notch. He still podiumed twice in the weekend. It's nothing to scoff at. He did a fantastic job. It's just that like, I think I take issue with where the barometer is placed when it comes to measuring Diggia's performance this weekend.
Absolutely. I was really, really impressed by Diggia. I think, like, yes, there are all the caveats about Marc and his injury and whatnot, but it's like an injured MarcMarc is still, you know. And I would say that Diggia was the fastest. He was the fastest Ducati across the weekend. Like, yeah. Marc beat him in the sprint because Diggia made an error. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm not going to say that he was the best Ducati in that sense. On the other hand, he beat Marc on Sunday because Marc made an error. So, yeah. But yeah, no, Diggia's pole was, that was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah. And also, to be fair to him, he was also injured.
True. Very true. How, I know that, of course, like, you and I are in different time zones, and we are also in different time zones to when the race was happening. So I don't know if you were watching these things live, but were you also eagerly awaiting the constant updates about whether the sprint was going to go ahead or not?
So funny story. The race time in my time zone was 2 a.m. I was fully intending on waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning to like catch up on the race before heading to work. But something, I think it's the weather, because it's like legitimately one of the hottest months in history right now here. I think we're expecting like 36 to 38 degrees C. I just could not sleep. And so I like woke up in a cold sweat and I was like, oh, it's 2:30 a.m. Surely the sprint would have happened by now. It sure didn't. So yes, I was actually following it basically live. Although by the time the sprint actually started, I was so checked out already. I just passed back out. I turned on the air conditioning and I fell back asleep. So I didn't actually get to watch the sprint live, but I did watch all the chaos about the fucking whole live.
Genuinely, this was like an incredibly, incredibly farcical week.
Yeah.
Sorry. Farcical weekend, I should say. I genuinely think that's the best word to describe it. The fact that there was, well, first of all, there were all the reports from journalists and people on the ground that the paddock was simply not up to par. That things were not ready. The track was not ready. The paddock was not ready. That the facilities were not what they should have been. And then on Saturday, things have to be delayed and pushed to Sunday because a literal hole appears on the main straight. Is crazy. That's crazy. Also how like just the whole way they handled it. First of all, you know, not just saying like, okay, like we are calling off today's action. We will reschedule everything for tomorrow while we figure this out. But them just like pushing it. Doing this sort of quick fix that no one was really sure was like, is that good enough? Is it safe? And then the funniest thing about, of course, was that they refused to show on the broadcast or say on the broadcast what the issue was. They were not letting, I think they were not letting photographers like take pictures of the sinkhole. So all you got was these like grainy fan pictures of just an actual sinkhole on track.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really slimy way to handle it. Not least because it's one thing to like throw all of these people around who are being paid to be there, who work in the paddock. But it's another thing entirely to throw around all of your paying customers, like your entire audience. Like, that's crazy. The fact that they have to scour through like fan photos just to figure out what's going on, to even know if they should stick around. Should they stay up from 2 a.m. to 4:30 a.m., for example, in certain people's cases?
For example.
Yeah. I just think that was like a really slimy way to handle it. And I'm not sure that they would have like necessarily learned the lesson that there is to learn from that. I think that if this happened again, they would do it again the same way.
That was like a disaster situation to happen during a race weekend. These things cannot happen during race weekends. But you know, like, you can make a point about like, okay, one, it's the first time we're there. But two, you know, like, maybe it's just like a complete freak incident. Like, there has never in the history of the region been this much rain. Like, what do I know? But there were so many freak incidents across the weekend that at some point you have to stop calling them freak incidents and just be like, no, this was just kind of a train wreck of a weekend.
Yeah, it was poorly planned, poorly thought out. They knew it was a year too early. They initially wanted to have the track on the calendar starting next year. So that's already like a crazy rush for time. And then it's during the part of the year that Brazil famously gets a lot of rain. So it's not like it was completely unexpected.
We did, however, almost see Diggia get his first sprint win.
We did. That was really close.
That was really close. I was cheering for him so hard. Though Marc did get him in the end. I will say, like, Marc got past him because Diggia made a mistake. I guess if Diggia had not made that mistake, there's still a chance Marc would have managed to sort of muscle his way through somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to say, like, incredible performance by Diggia.
For sure. Yeah.
Really,
also, like, if you said earlier that, like, Marc was notably slower, like, clearly slower, what a great job he did defending. Like, the few times that he was ahead of Diggia, both in the sprint and in the Grand Prix, he just made it so difficult for Diggia to get past. And I remember this especially in the sprint. Like, the video pass commentators kept saying, like, it's completely impossible to try and outbrake Marc, because if you break where he breaks, you just end up wide, and then you're not able to make the corner, and then you have no more room to do the overtake. So, and yeah, like, it's beautiful to watch like a skilled defender when they have less pace than the person that they're defending from. Echoes of Pedro Acosta from late last year as well.
Yeah. Of course, there was only the couple of laps at the end that Marc was ahead. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, Diggia would pull up alongside him on the main straight, and then Marc was just like, you can't outbreak him like that. Not on the same bike, certainly.
Yeah.
I was also incredibly impressed by the third guy on the podium, Martinator.
Which brings us to one of your predictions as well.
Go on.
Prediction number 2 from TVRoomRaccoon. Martin top 3.
Hey!
Not bad, hey?
That was not a bad prediction. That was not a bad prediction.
And your last one is Marc still won't lead the championship, so you're like you're like 3 for 4. No, you're 2 for 4.
I'm 2 for 4.
Damn, that sucks for you.
Aren't you also 2 for 4?
Yeah. True. We don't need to talk about it.
Do you want to read
also,
out
one
your
of my 2 for 4 are so obvious. I'm really only proud of one of my predictions, which is 3 Aprilias in the top 5, which I think was not a done deal. It wasn't like a guarantee. I think Iagura really fought for that 5th position.
And certainly not like after Friday when like Bezzecchi was nowhere. Like they looked really off the pace.
Yeah, and you see this reflected in my fantasy team as well. Join the MotoGirlyPops Fantasy League. Code in the description if you want. But yeah, you see this reflected in my fantasy team as well. It was like Constructor Aprilia, Team Aprilia, Iagura, Marco Bezzecchi. I like went all in.
And I'm sure you don't regret it.
No, I don't. And I even knew which track house it would be. Like, I probably should have done that. I should have probably said like Raul Fernandez, only Aprilia, not in the top 5. But that feels mean, so I didn't.
So then after the sprint and this emotional podium for Jorge Martín, we move on to Sunday. The farce is not ending. It is merely entering a third act of sorts.
Yes.
So first of all, we had Moto2 qualifying on Sunday because they had to postpone it on Saturday because there was a hole in the track. So we got that. We got a Moto3 race, which ended up just being like a 5-lap sprint to the line at the end. I was
heartbroken. Do you know how well Hakim Danish was doing before the red flag? He was running in 2nd and 4th for like a lot of the first half of that Moto3 race.
How are you feeling about him in Moto3 in general?
Really, really promising. Also, like, I don't know if like MSEG were really necessarily expecting this, but all the comments like you have to scroll far to find a comment that's not in Bahasa Indonesia. And that's just for someone who got third. Like he wasn't even first or second. He didn't even win the race. But Veda Pratama, oh my God, that was a really great performance. And he performed well both in the first chunk of the Moto3 race as well as the little 5-lap sprint. And like, it's not like he had a really good start at the restart. His start was kind of bad, and he made up a ton of positions in just those 5 laps.
And I mean, it's his second weekend. It's his second weekend in Moto3.
Yeah, right. I almost wonder if like the new track gave him a bit of an advantage. Like maybe both.
That's a good point, actually.
Because everyone else, all those other guys have been racing around Europe for a lot longer than he and Danish have.
Very good point. I'm really excited to see how the two of them do going forward.
Now to quote your episode note here, track literally disintegrating Thanos snap style.
Correct. That is actually what happened. The track did not feel so good, Mr. Stark.
No, it definitely did not. We were seeing images of like huge welts and bruises on Alex Rins's fingers and Alex Marquez's arms, among many others. I've been pelted by a stone at the back straight of Sepang before, and it fucking hurt. Like that really hurt. It also like took out half my radiator. And then I crawled to a stop at the end of the back straight and just toppled over in the grass at like 0 kilometers an hour. But no, like stones at that speed hurt.
I feel like I really should just put on like a white woman Karen-esque voice for this, but it's simply not acceptable.
Yes. Do you think that the riders should have said that they were not going to race in those conditions?
They were never going to. Actually, well, whether they should have, I don't know, because I'm also guessing they did not really know how bad it was, because it got worse through the Moto3 and Moto2 race.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that it may have seemed like not great, but okay when they were doing like during MotoGP warm up, and then by the time they got around to the actual race, it was just like, I mean, it was literally tearing up. And then you had the whole fiasco where they had to cut the race length for safety reasons, clearly, because the track was just not holding up.
But then they didn't disclose what those safety reasons were.
No, and they also told the teams like on the grid a couple of minutes before the race was due to start. Some teams had time to change tires, some did not. It just like you just look at the sum of it, and
it's one thing for the circuit to not be ready and for it to be in poor condition, and it's another thing for MSEG to actively like cover up and like throw dust over the problem and try and make it go away and like, you know, throw wool in everyone's eyes as to what's actually going on. And the reason I asked you about if you think that the riders should have chosen not to go out is because last episode we discussed whether or not riders would have the gumption to like use their leverage to refuse to go out if there are safety concerns. And this was in reference to the Adelaide street circuit that was announced after Phillip Island lost their contract. And like, I got a little bit of flack in comments here and there on various platforms for saying that like, when push comes to shove, MotoGP riders are just going to go out and ride even if it kills them. And I felt like this weekend proved that a little bit. Maybe you're right and they didn't have all the information, but I feel like if they had all the information, someone should have been like, no, I'm not doing this.
No, you said that, you know, it's one thing for the circuit not to be ready. It's another thing for Dorna/MSEG/SMEG to try to sort of cover it up and not handle the issues as it came up. And I disagree on that. And I've seen this take a couple of places. I've heard people say things like, well, you know, if the organizers say that they are ready and that things are fine, like you kind of just have to, like, you have to trust them. No, you don't. Like you genuinely don't. And
I see what you're saying. You're coming at it from the other angle.
I am. And Daksha, avert your eyes. I'm about to make another F1 comparison. Thank you. In F1 right now, as some people have surely caught, there's a situation where Aston Martin have a new engine built by Honda. Honda have made an engine that is literally that is making the car literally dangerous to drive. And so what Aston Martin are saying is that, oh, you know, we had no idea that the Honda project was struggling so much. You know, we signed this deal with them in 2023 and like, you know, they've had great success in the past with Red Bull, blah, blah, blah. And then it was only last year in November, only a few months ago, that some people actually went to Honda's headquarters and discovered that all was not in fact well. There were different engineers. They had less experience. The project was struggling, blah, blah, blah. And so Aston Martin is saying this, and in saying so, they are blaming Honda for this problem, which is such bullshit. Because if you enter a deal with an engine manufacturer, or if you as Dorna enter a deal with a circuit, it's also your fucking job to follow up on it. Like, you cannot trust that when people tell you like, oh yes, all is well, that you're just like, okay, I guess we're just like, you know, gonna check out, you know, oh, you've signed a deal to be a new MotoGP track. We will see you in.
They sent someone. David Emmett said that Smeg sent a representative like 2 or 3 months earlier to just
and clearly that representative did not do a good enough job.
Yeah, my concern is not just that they were like, okay, yeah, you can't trust them, but also like when it's literally 4 minutes before the race, I feel like people deserve to know the reason why the race length has been shorted. That's just all I meant by like covering things up.
And also like the writers, there has to be, I refuse to believe that for a sport of this size, like, yes, we wish MotoGP was much larger. Yes, we wish it would grow. But MotoGP is still a large global sport. I refuse to believe that for sports such as this, that they don't have crisis management plans for specifically for these kinds of situations. Like,
it's
what do we do if
company? It's a family business.
It is a family business in the worst kind of way. Like, if we are 4 minutes before lights out and we suddenly discover that there is like a track issue and that we will need to, you know, or maybe like, you know, the tires are not going to hold up, whatever. Like, there needs to be a pre-made plan that says like, if those things happen, like, you know, we will delay the start by 10 minutes. We will, you know, notify the teams. We will blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not that hard to predict that this at some point will happen. I just do not understand how, like, why they handled this as poorly as they did.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But how about that race, though? It was a pretty good race.
It was a pretty good race. How are you feeling about Marco Bezzecchi winning the last, like, 4 consecutive Grand Prix?
Great. The only thing I don't like about this is that I regret not doubling down and saying that he would win this year's championship.
I was going to say, I literally asked you last episode whether you regret chickening out on that prediction.
Totally. I totally regret chickening out on that prediction. I chickened out literally at the last minute, like in the middle of the recording of the episode. My notes said that he would win the championship, and I chickened out and said that he would play second. And I feel like my reasoning for predicting that he would perform well this year was like all there. All the cards stacked up nicely, and then I just blew my house of cards down for no reason. And I feel like kind of vindicated in a way, but also kind of cheated in a way, like cheated by myself, by my own cowardice. 101 consecutive race laps led. That kind of stat kind of annoys me a little bit. I see you've put bullshit stat in the episode notes. Completely agree. Sprints count. Sprints are real races. Jorge Martín has a whole championship to show for it.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Like, if we're only going to care about, if we're not going to include sprints in these sort of stats, Pecco Bagnaia is 2024 world champion.
Yeah. And wouldn't you love that?
And wouldn't I love that?
No,
I'm happy for Martín. I was hoping for Martín to get that title, and I'm glad he did. So I hope you know, if we get to November and Marco Bezzecchi wins this championship, I'm going to find that so fucking funny, considering I can tell our dear viewers and listeners that I have actually gone back and checked the episode notes, and what Daxa is saying is true. She did write Marco Bezzecchi as the predicted winner of the championship in the prep notes for our predictions. And then, chickened out as we were recording. And
Thank you for defending my honor.
I will defend your honor, but I will also make a lot of fun of you.
That's fair. I think that's very deserved. Also, I've noticed online, especially in Twitter fangirl spaces, there's a lot of there's a lot more animosity between like Bezzecchi Marquez fans this year, like at the potential Bezzecchi Marquez title contention, than there ever was between Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martín, who contended for the previous 2 championships, or even Pecco Bagnaia and Fabio Quartararo, who contested the 2 before that. Like,
which is particularly funny considering MotoGP Reddit has just turned into a MarcMarc fan fiction hub.
Yes. And so I'm wondering, like, how do those people fit in? Like, it's a total like crapshoot right now. Like, you can click on someone's profile and they're either like completely in love with Bezzecchi or they completely hate him, or you could click on someone's profile and then they want them to kiss. Yeah, I just think it's really interesting from like a fan point of view. People are going to get really into this title fight from like a narrative perspective if it's between Marc Marquez and Marco Bezzecchi.
I have 2 takes here. And one of them is a spicy prediction. My first take is that I think there's a chance that like a Bezzecchi Marquez title fight almost feels kind of like a Rossi Marquez redemption arc type thing. Similar to how
one.
Yeah, no, but I stand by it. Like how I think like Bezzecchi, like the relationship between the 2 of them clearly thawing last year was a lot of fun to watch. But my second take, Jorge Martín will win this title.
What?
I'm just going to come
really
out
well. He did really, really well.
I feel like people are underappreciating how good Jorge Martín's weekend was. Martín qualified P5 on the second row, but he crashed in Quali, like a lot of others. Like he was on for at least the front row and maybe pole at the time that he crashed, which is of course like, I mean, like you could, there are a lot of riders who could say that about. But in the sprint, he beat Bezzecchi. He was on the podium and Bezzecchi was not. And in the Grand Prix, he had to pass multiple riders. And this obviously took some time. He had to pass multiple riders. And then once he got into P2, he was as fast or faster than Bezzecchi. And of course, like I understand that there are a lot of caveats to that. I understand that Bez was, up front and probably, managing the pace, managing his
I don't
tires.
think he was at 100% the whole time. And also Martín himself admitted that his pace was not super consistent. Like he had some laps in like the 119.5s. I think randomly in the middle of his 18.7s and 18.8s.
I think if you'd swapped them, I think if Martín had qualified P2 and Bezzecchi had qualified P5, I think there's every possibility that Martín would have won on Sunday.
Okay, and then you think that because Martín is a historically good qualifier, that's going to happen more and more often in the rest of the season?
Yes, and because Martín, unlike Bezzecchi, has won 2 world championships. And he won that second world championship in particular, he won through consistency. Jorge Martín knows the value of P2s, because that's what got him the title last time. Yes, we all know that he had an absolutely torrid, horrible injury-ridden 2025, but he also had 2 surgeries over the winter break and missed the entire first half of preseason testing. He was not testing in Sepang. And like he is multiple days of testing behind Marco Bezzecchi, as well as like basically a full year of bike adaptation. And he is already pretty much on Bezzecchi's pace. And I mean, I've said before that I think Bezzecchi has the raw talent and speed to contend for a championship, but I'm not convinced he has the consistency. I think Martín has the consistency.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, and then I'm gonna look like a moron when Martín is P7 in the championship.
No, I really like this take.
But I'm gonna go out and say it.
I mean, you can't change your actual original predictions from before the season, but I really like this take for round 2. This is a fun one. He's definitely going to be fun to watch. And also, speaking of being fun to watch, the best overtake of the race was completely invisible because even though the cameras were actively on Martín, Marquez, and Diggia during this overtake, they happened to like go behind a Marshall post and there was just no camera coverage of that part of the track. So we didn't get to see him like overtake both of them in one move, which I think it was like Diggia, but no, Marc who made the mistake, let Diggia through, and then Martín took advantage of the situation and got them both in one fell swoop. And I was so irritated later in the race. One of the commentators, I can't remember which one of them it was, one of the video pass commentators said that like, oh, this Marquez move on Diggia is probably the overtake of the race. And I'm like, did you see that 2-for-1 pass that Martín did? Oh yeah, you didn't see that 2-for-1 pass because even though you're watching 16 screens at the same time. It just so happened to occur out of the view of every single one of their cameras. I thought that was a little unfortunate because that was a beautiful pass.
It was gorgeous. Oh, it was so good. Yeah, I'm really impressed with Diggia this weekend, and I'm even more impressed with Martin. Daksha, I have a question for you.
Yes.
In the last 2 years, going back to the start of 2024, Marc Marquez has been beaten on pace by someone on the same bike on 3 occasions. The Solidarity Sprint by Alex Marquez, the Sprint and Grand Prix in MotoGP by Pecco, and now a 4th time by Diggia. Is our goat washed?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can smell the detergent from here. He's never been cleaner a day in his life.
We've said it before, and I'm saying it again. Promote Diggia now.
Yeah. Let's hold our 300 horsepower because it's definitely something interesting to think about. But if this is a conversation that we are going to have, it's going to be a really depressing one. Like the day that Marc Marquez is washed is also going to be the day that Marc Marquez is spent physically, mentally, etc. And I think that real physical human tears will fall around the world once that happens.
But to make it less depressing, Daksha, is our baby goat washed?
Didn't he get P5?
And where was his teammate? His teammate was on pole and winning.
Yeah.
I have to say, as someone who has been a religious proponent of the Dani Holgado agenda, I'm eating well.
You really are. I mean, I can't argue with that. It was a master class. No one else was even close.
I really think it's going to be so interesting to see. I mean, we discussed this when we were predicting our solo season moves. I'm convinced he's going to be in MotoGP next year, Holgado, and I'm more and more curious to see where that might be. But yeah, no, I'm...
he did so well that the race was boring, and that's exactly the kind of performance that MotoGP teams are going to be looking for when they're scouting for next year.
That's our Lorenzo in the making.
Yeah. Brings us to our hot takes. I have a juicy one for you. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I can go first if yours is juicy. Okay, I'm curious to hear what you make of this one. This is a take from Reddit. My beloved.
Of course.
Of course. Martin is back in the team. Boom. Suddenly the bike flies, and the other riders on the same bike find pace after practice sessions where they've been nowhere. Yes, I have seen this earlier many, many times in Martin's Ducati era.
That's the whole take?
That's the whole take.
Is the implication that Martin's data is so valuable, it's like a golden egg that like magically unlocks performance for all of his teammates?
I believe that is the take.
Yeah, I'll defend that. Absolutely,
It's actually not that. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, that's kind of why I picked it.
That's a hot, interesting take. Thank you for serving that up on my platter for this fine evening. Yeah, I can totally see a world where that's the case. I mean, a lot has been said for Bezzecchi's development direction over the last year, turning Aprilia into the rocket ship that it is. But like, I can totally see a world where Martin's data is like the final missing piece of the puzzle, especially since both of these riders are famous for like sort of different phases of cornering. Like Bezzecchi's someone who loves to talk about corner entry and like what he does in the braking phase, and Martin is someone who's famous for his exits and just maximizing like completely like sideways on the exit out of corners, sort of like turning every corner into a bit of a stoner corner, if you will. And so like I can see a world in which those two styles sort of complement each other and create and turn an already really fast motorcycle into a really well-rounded and easier to ride fast motorcycle that your Raul Fernandez and Ayaguraz's can consistently put in the top 5.
There you go. Not that hot of a take.
Not that hard to defend. Thank you for that. Thank you for that softball. You, on the other hand, do not have a softball.
Hit me.
The one thing I never understood about the Pecco Aprilia rumors is why Aprilia would even want him. I believe he is a bum who was never good to begin with and got exposed. He isn't complete ass, but he was never on that level. And that's in reference to someone else's comment that said, Pecco's real speed is the one with which he fought for wins on year 2 with Pramac, and then battled for the championship on his first factory season and won 10 races in 2024. In the right frame of mind, I've got no doubt he can do exactly that again. And this person said, no, he's a bum who was never good to begin with and got exposed. Not complete ass, but not on that level.
It's going to be genuinely really hard for me to defend this because I disagree so strongly with that take. I believe that Pecco is complete ass.
Right. Okay. Sure.
No,
someone did say that in the comments below.
I'm glad to know. Never change Reddit.
This is from Twitter.
Even better.
Yeah.
Never change Twitter. He's complete ass. Not complete ass. But a bum. I think there's a totally reasonable argument to be made for that. I've seen people describe Pecco as a Dovizioso who got luckier with the bike. I don't think that's entirely fair because I think that Dovizioso also in at least a couple of those years did have the fastest bike. But perhaps you can call Pecco a Dovizioso who managed to ride the bike the way that Gigi Dall'Igna wanted in a way that Dovi never quite did, but who is a one-trick pony that can only manage to get performances out of machinery on that level. And then, yeah, we've talked about this endlessly, like the moment the bike no longer speaks to him the way he needs to, he's nowhere. And I also think Valentin Jorin did an article a couple of years back about how Pecco Bagnaia is like a statistical outlier among MotoGP world champions in how bad his rookie season was. Like going back like several decades. Like a lot of MotoGP world champions will come in and like, they're not all MarcMarc. They're not all going to win the title or even races in their first year. But a lot of them will at least get, have some peaks, that sort of thing. I think Pecco Bagnaia had the lowest finishing position in the final standings in his rookie season of like any MotoGP champion back to several decades. So Pecco Bagnaia has had by far the best bike. He has only won the championship 2 of the 4 years that he was in contention. And in both occasions, he made it look difficult. I think especially fighting Quartararo, that is kind of damning on Pecco. Yeah. Case closed.
Wow. Do you even like him? That was so easy for you. That was like genuinely easy for you to do. Are you sure you're a Pecco fan?
Actually, you're forgetting something very important.
What is this?
I'm a Pecco fan on, for instance, Reddit. This means that I spend a lot of time, or at least have spent a fair amount of time defending Pecco against people making exactly those arguments. Like every argument that Pecco is a bum, I have heard.
Right. You're an encyclopedia of Pecco bum.
Do not speak to me of the ancient magic switch. I was there when in the beginning. Yep. Like I have gotten all these served and had to respond to them.
Right. All right. Fair enough. That explains that. Those are our hot takes. Now for our Gold Star, Naughty Corner, and Participation trophies. Who has gotten your Gold Star for this race weekend?
My Gold Star this weekend was a difficult decision, and I really wanted to give it to Martin for the reasons we just spoke about. I'm going to give my Gold Star to Aprilia.
Oh, interesting.
I think just like the work that they've done in the past 6 years to catch up from where they were to where they are now, the internal changes, the technical changes, the riders. I just think, it's not building a race winning and championship contending team and bike is so difficult.
Noali wasn't built in a day.
Noali was not built in a day. It's not, Massimo Rivola did not show up and snap his fingers and like things were suddenly fine. It's been a lot of work and they've managed to push through. By all accounts, they're still a team with a great internal atmosphere. And they are, they do have that kind of deserved underdog punching above their weight vibe. And I'm genuinely really impressed by them. I don't know if they're going to win a title or any title this year, but they are looking like legitimate contenders and they all deserve gold stars for that.
Yeah, I like that they didn't have to lose their soul in order to become a consistent race winning team. For me, though, I was thinking this even before we had our Martin conversation, but it's Jorge Martin. He gets the gold star for me for all the reasons we've already said. Who's in your naughty corner?
A sinkhole.
The sinkhole.
Yeah, it's in the corner. No, I'm fucking with you. Or I don't even know. Who's in my naughty corner? Whoever was in charge of this weekend. I don't care about like the diffusion of responsibility. Oh, was it the organizers? Was it like Dorna, MSEG, whoever? Someone has to be in charge. That is how businesses and organizations and events work. Someone was at the top and someone had responsibility for this, and this was just like laughably bad.
Yeah.
This was bad at a level that I struggle to remember seeing in any other professional sport in like the past.
It was a bit shameful. Like it was more than funny. It was actually just a little bit sad.
Yeah, and also like at one point it is also just you start having real safety concerns.
Yeah.
What about you?
I didn't really give this one too much thought. I'm going to put Fabio Quartararo in the naughty corner for giving us hope.
I was about to be so outraged. Yeah. Do you feel? I feel like the Yamaha suffering factory is kind of struggling with the suffering production.
No, they're still suffering. That's the problem. They're still suffering. It's just Fabio doing Fabio things, and I'm like,
yes,
I'm over it. I've never in my history of watching professional sports wanted someone to give up before in my life. I mean, it's good that he keeps reminding us that he's hot shit, but like,
he's that bitch.
He's that bitch. But like, oh my God, cool it.
I think genuinely, we will see how like, let's see until the mid-season how things go. But this weekend, I was like, Yamaha here, they look like a bad MotoGP team. But it doesn't look like
a halfway decent Moto2 team.
Yes, exactly. Like they don't, this looks like a MotoGP like back marker, but it doesn't look like someone where you're going to be vaguely concerned about, meeting the qualifying requirements. Okay, I don't quite mean that, but like, this does not look that far off from where they were at times last year or the year before.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you that. And who gets your participation award?
My participation award for doing absolutely nothing of note all weekend. Actually, I'm going to make it an unparticipation award and give it to Jorge Lorenzo.
For dipping and not showing up?
For dipping, who was not at the race and whose honeymoon phase with Maverick Vinales seems to be distinctly over.
I cannot believe they proved everyone right. Everyone said this shit is going to last 2 races, and it lasted exactly 2 races. That's crazy. That's genuinely crazy. My participation award goes to Diogo Moreira. Good job. But like,
you don't think he did a better job than just a participation trophy?
No, he did, but like nobody talked about it because so much other shit happened. He was invisible.
True.
He deserved more recognition, I thought, for his performance in his home race. But yeah, unfortunately, certain holes in the ground overshadowed it. So I thought I should recognize him here.
I appreciate that. We have a very exciting development on the topic of women in racing this week.
We sure do.
Because this weekend is the opening weekend for WCR.
Yes, more women in racing per racing than you will get in any other championship series.
Yeah. The women pro racing of the series is in fact incredibly high.
100%, one might say.
Yes. They're going to be in Portimao this weekend with the World Superbike paddock. I'm really excited to see how things are going to go. We talked a bit about that in our first episode, but there are so many, both of the front runners last year, but also of the newcomers staring at Paula Ramos that I think are just going to be so exciting to watch.
Yeah, so we'll definitely give you some content from that when it comes to that weekend. However, what we will not be covering is the 2026 American MotoGP round at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. And I figured that people might want to know why we've chosen not to cover that MotoGP round. And so we've chosen not to cover the 2026 American MotoGP round at COTA in Austin because of the atrocities that the U.S. is committing in Iran, Lebanon, Palestine, and Cuba. Now, you might say, hey, basically every country commits some sort of horrible atrocity somewhere. So what gives? Where is your line? And I think that that's a very fair question. For us, the line was the indiscriminate bombing of residential buildings and schools in a major population center of 10 million civilians. Now, for our American listeners, I can understand that a lot of you recognize this and you don't feel like you're personally responsible. So this can be a little uncomfortable to hear. And I hear that. I love America. I chose to live there for 5 years and get my education there. America is the reason that I sound like this and have this accent. And, there are a lot of great, incredible Americans that I look up to, not least of which, Kayla Yakov, who we've been talking a lot about recently in our episodes. The list goes on and on. There's hundreds of them. But unfortunately, if you're American and listening to this, the chances are that you're probably not one of these great American heroes of mine. Unless Kayla's listening for some reason, in which case we love you. The thing is, the last time that your country was raping, bombing, poisoning, giving experimental cancers to, and brutalizing people halfway across the world, in Iraq and in Vietnam and in Afghanistan, so many incredibly brave, principled, and great Americans stood together and said, no more, sometimes at great personal cost to them. So if you're not on that list of my personal American heroes, here's how you can get on a much longer list of great Americans who I also admire and respect. By doing a few very simple things. You could gather signatures or write to your local representative to stop the war and stop sending your sons and daughters to go die somewhere far away. You could protect and shelter your neighbors, immigrant neighbors, if necessary. You could talk to other people in your community about what you can do. And you could donate to humanitarian relief efforts in Iran, Lebanon, and Palestine. If you don't know any charities that look trustworthy, I have linked a couple that I have vetted below. I don't think I'm going to make a difference or anything just by not doing a podcast episode about motorcycle racing, but it's just that I just personally can't bring myself to stomach the cognitive dissonance and watch that race on Liberty Media's video pass as if nothing is happening. And you guys are probably going to ask why, so we are sharing the why. Raccoon, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Yes, I think it's important also for us to recognize that motorsports and MotoGP are used for marketing purposes and sports washing by plenty of countries that do really shitty things. If you look at the list of countries hosting a race this season, it's not as though America is unique in doing things we do not accept. I think also part of what makes it hard when you do look at a situation like this and you do ask yourself, is it right for us to be covering this or not, is that every situation is different. So, we can't look at what's happening in the world right now and say that that is completely identical to some previous historical situation that would have warranted boycotting sports events, because it's never a complete one-to-one match, because there's always going to be at least minor differences. The flip side of that is that it then becomes really difficult to say where the line actually goes. And so, you end up in these situations where things are getting worse and worse and worse. And at some point, the line has been crossed without people really noticing it. And I think that's worth saying, because clearly, there are certain lines that need to be drawn. For instance, I would assume that almost everyone who listens to this podcast would agree that it was right for instance, F1 to boycott or pull out of Russia after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. And the fact that, yes, history does not repeat itself one-to-one, that doesn't mean that there aren't strong parallels. As Daxa said, people were rightfully protesting the Vietnam War or the American invasion of Iraq in 2003. I think pretty much everyone agrees that a sports boycott of apartheid South Africa was the correct move. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'm not going to say that this was an easy and obvious decision for us, but I think it's one that we are very comfortable with, because instigating a war of aggression in complete violation of international law, an illegal war of aggression that includes, as Daxa said, bombing residential areas, bombing schools in a major population center, that is where we have decided to draw our line. And like Daxa said, I also love the US. I lived in the US for 4 years. I also got my education there. I also have an American accent. I miss the US. I miss my friends there every day. And like, do I think that us not covering the American Grand Prix will make a difference in current event? Like, no, obviously, I don't think. I don't think anyone who makes any kind of decision about anything is gonna notice that or realize it. But it's our small way of saying that we refuse to accept that what's happening right now is normal or that it can be overlooked.
Yep. That about sums it up. So we will see you guys for the WCR round. Maybe a few other bonus episodes in between here and there. And then we'll see you in April for Jerez. You can find the MotoGirlyPops podcast on any platform of your choosing by copying the RSS feed link in the description below of this YouTube video. So if you don't want to watch it on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can watch it on whatever weird open source thing that you're into. Or you could watch it on one of those platforms. And if you do, please leave a comment, leave a heart, or just tell us that we're wrong and stupid and that I'm a coward for not predicting Marco Bezzecchi to win the World Championship this year.
And on that note, we will see you in our next episode. Iconic.
My cat's under the sheet right now. Come here, buddy. Come here. Can you see him? He's in there.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh, he's perfect. Perfect baby. What a perfect baby. Oh my god. That was great.
Yeah.
I hope you got that on camera.
I sure did.
There's a situation where Aston Martin have a new engine built by Honda.
Oh,
which
yes.
is such a disaster that the car is dangerous to drive and like several seconds off the pace.
I think me and my wife have a Honda engine that we use sometimes late at night.
Are you putting that in the...
No, I don't know about that, but I just had to make the joke.
I'm glad the joke was made.
Mm-hmm.